Hi everyone, for today's video I'm going to be doing a skill breakdown on Merlin. Merlin is an Old Faith Arcanist that you unlock through the story within Act 2. You have to choose between either him or Morgawse. Merlin is definitely the more popular pick based on what I've seen around from the community. Both are very good picks, but looking at Merlin's skill tree, I can definitely also see why he is more popular. Just better name recognition, and his skills are very, very good. He's definitely really high up there in the game in terms of like who's the best Arcanist. It's either probably him or Morgana. There's definitely certain pros and cons to both. I think a lot of people though will probably lean on Merlin, and I can definitely see why. So let's go ahead and get into the skills and see why so many people like this character so much. Starting with Tier 1, we have the basic bolt attack that every Arcanist has. His is Firebolt, though at base, without any upgrades, it's basically just Force Bolt. It's not until you get to this first upgrade, Inferno, where it gains Burning, where it actually becomes a Firebolt, and a big whopping 40% burning damage is solid. Obviously, this is something you're going to take on it, as well as the Overheat for plus 15% weapon damage. As usual, there's also Mind Game, where you gain an AP back on a kill with the Bolt. When you first get him, this may be decent. You'll get a little bit of AP back, but moves are so expensive, this doesn't really feel like it's really worth it. I mean, getting one back for spending 6, And especially later in the game, where you're mostly going to be casting your spells rather than using your Bolt, this definitely just falls off even more later on. Multiple targets, you split it into 3 for less damage for each individual hit. This is the one you mostly take if you're just trying to spread status conditions, want to knock back multiple targets, want to burn multiple targets. If you have the Summer Staff from that build video I showed off before with Merlin, this could be useful because more burns means more of them are going to get hit with that huge nuke after you trigger the wild magic on that. But aside from that, you're better off putting the skill point elsewhere, I think. For his first active skill, we have something entirely unique to him, Illusion. It has an extremely high range with low cost, a low cooldown. You basically summon a clone of himself with 1 vitality. Be careful where you're placing it, because if you place it in an Overwatch, it'll get shot immediately. But if you place it on a trap, it'll be fine. This ability is a really good sort of CC maneuver, because it just forces your enemies into wasting an attack against this clone. It sort of has a soft taunt on it, where sometimes enemies will ignore it, but a lot of the time they will go for the kill on it because they see it as an enemy of theirs who's very easily killable. So having something that you can place at a distance to just waste an enemy's attack, which is a huge AP loss on their turn, is very useful. And then with upgrades of Fertile Mind, reduce the cost by 1, so now it's that super cheap, very desirable 1 AP cost. Shivers, allowing you to place it maybe a bit more offensively, place it next to enemies, and enemies adjacent to this illusion will become chilled for 2 turns. This is just further another AP waster. They're starting their turn with less AP and then wasting more attacking it. Mirage, this is actually very good. You give it a 50% dodge, so every attack at it, it's a coin flip whether they'll actually hit it and then kill it or not. Just, again, you're noticing the thing just trying to create this huge AP sink of wasting more and more attacks into these things. And then Illusionist, reduce the cooldown by 1, making this much more spammable. When you get later into the game and have that Mindstorm talent, it's very, very easy to have 3 or more of these illusions up at a single time. Next, we have an ability unique to him as an Arcanist, an excellent mobility move, Teleport. Teleport being probably the best mobility move in the game because it's super cheap, high range, and you just appear there. With the first upgrade, Time Shift, reduce the cost by 1, bringing it down to that 1 AP cost. Astral Journey, heal some HP when you teleport. This can get some use, but a lot of the time in my fights, my Arcanists aren't taking a huge amount of damage because I'm purposefully keeping them back and safe. Even with that into account, they do take damage sometimes, but not enough for me to think that this is worth it. The third upgrade is Far Reach, plus 2 range on the teleport. This is just a very obvious pick. It's a mobility move, you want more mobility. Lastly is Shadowgate. The hero arrives at the destination hidden. This just, I think, is a good defensive maneuver if you're going to end your turn with a teleport. Just helps ensure that he's going to not get hit. This just adding on to what I mentioned earlier is another reason why I think it makes this Astral Journey upgrade that much less useful. Then the standard defense for all Arcanist is magical armor, very powerful. You gain a huge amount of armor for the first attack, and then with the extended armor upgrade, it lasts 2 attacks. And most of the time, that's all the attacks the Arcanist is going to be getting in the entire fight if you are playing smartly. This first upgrade here for reinforced armor adds 12 more armor. This is a scaling upgrade, so just makes it that much less likely that any hit they do take, as little of it as possible, or none of it, will bleed over into that HP pool. Resist injury, +1 injury token, may be more useful early on if you notice your characters are getting injured a lot. Later in the game, you should definitely be avoiding injuries by that point pretty well, and this becomes not useful. Enchanted armor, increase the base armor by 5. Every little bit of defense helps. I normally do take this on a lot of Arcanists. Merlin just has so many abilities that require skill point investments in them, and that are worth skill point investments. I just ended up not taking this on him. He's very, very safe as is, so I don't think he really needs this. And now for passives, we have extra damage, 10% more weapon damage. Merlin is a pretty good damage dealer, so buffing this up on him definitely does help. Long reach, +1 spellcraft, +1 to range. You want this on every ranged character. More range is always better. And then Master Alchemist, more efficient potions. It's whatever. I don't like this. I'm not sure I've met anyone that really does. But if you do, it's there. Going into Tier 2, it's a very unique Tier 2 for an Arcanist, kicking it off with Raven Swarm. It's a single target move that applies 10% weapon damage 5 times for a total of 50%. You're not really taking this for the damage. It is a nice sort of chip damage, though, to add on to everything else you have going on. You're mostly taking this for the slow. This is kind of like his version of slowing Hex, but it does last longer, and when the enemy dies, it can spread to a new target. The upgrades are good, but not super necessary, I find. Raven Swarm is just a very good base skill as is. The upgrades making it a little better, but nothing super impactful. But the first one here is Raven Swarm now hits 1 extra time, so now it's 6 hits of 10%. Like I mentioned, you're not really taking this for the damage. I would definitely take this after any other upgrades. A good one here, though, is Smother. You grant weakness, so now if an enemy does make it up to your allies, your party members, and does start swinging on them, they'll be doing a lot less damage. Vengeful Swarm just increases the range from which it can transfer from one target to another. It already has a fairly decent transfer range, so I don't really run into this problem a lot, but adding 2 to it, bringing it up to 6, basically guarantees it'll always transfer to an enemy, so it's not bad. And then Persistent Flock, increase the duration by 1. This one is pretty good, just keeping that slow up for that much longer. And of course, that little bit of extra chip damage from the dot. Next, we have Mind Fog. This is a very powerful crowd control effect, as it forces an enemy to just target the nearest unit, whether it's an ally or an enemy, and go hit them. If they have 50% mental debuff resist or higher, they become chilled instead of doing the whole mind control kind of effect. And if they're chilled, they have 33% less AP. Either way, they're losing out on a bunch of AP, either through just a flat reduction in chill or from wasting AP hitting an ally. Obviously, you need to be smart when using this, because if you have one of your characters right next to them, they'll still just hit your party member. This ability is best used on enemies that are farther away. With the first upgrade of Puppeteer, you reduce the cost by 1, bringing it down to 2. Long Reach, you're increasing the range by 2. Gloomchild, you reduce the cooldown by 1. All of these are just very standard upgrades you take on pretty much any ability that offers it. The last upgrade of Mind Drain, the target gains weakness after they do the attack. So, for example, if you cast this on an enemy, they shoot one of their allies, smack one of their allies, whatever, now they have weakness. We have Mental Guard, 20% mental debuff resist. Every adjacent character's mental debuff resist becomes equal to, in this case, it would be Merlin's. This is just sort of a defensive. I've never really looked too seriously into this one. Mental Fort, 15%. So now this is 35%. Extended Guard, increase the range of this by 1. Mental Fort again, 15%. So now you're looking at 50%. And then Extended Guard, increase the range again by 1. So if your party's just really struggling with resistance of mental debuffs, this is useful. I'd rather just go all in on Merlin's other abilities. Next we have Fire Drake, his first offensive spell. This is an amazing one. It's a really cool one. It actually summons in like a Drake that does a flyby. 120% weapon damage in a 5-tile long straight line. This is good damage. It has a good tile length, so you can pretty much always get a double hit on this. Triples are also not uncommon. With the first upgrade, Scorching Blaze, we're just increasing the damage by 10%. Great Serpent, add +2 tile ranges for the Fire Drake, so now it'll hit 7. This is definitely the first upgrade I would take, as it will definitely make the difference between you hitting 2 targets in a third or even just 1 target in a second. Inferno, now it causes burning with 50% burn damage, very high burn damage. And then Drake's Curse, also applying vulnerability, so follow-up attacks will now do extra damage. Merlin has an extra cooldown reduction with Mysticism here in Tier 2. Normally you see this on Sages. This triggers once per turn, and it's not hard for him to get a kill, so this will definitely get use. And Evasion, dodge the first incoming melee attack. He is so defensive and flexible and mobile. This really isn't super useful, not going to come up a whole lot. Just teleport or illusion or mind fog. He's a very safe hero. Going into Tier 3 now, still a lot of unique things. We have another offensive spell with Falling Star. This is a 3x3 area attack with 130% damage, and it does cause knockback to enemies hit within the outer edge of this AoE. So it does also have some battlefield manipulation to try and push enemies farther away or towards something else, what have you. It is a very expensive move, but it is a very hard-hitting 3x3 AoE, definitely I think the highest. So it also gets some good upgrades to kind of help justify this cost, but it is very expensive. The first upgrade being Firestarter, so now it causes burning. 30% lower than his other ones, but it is still extra damage, and it does have a higher base damage. Impact, you do 30% extra damage to the center target of this AoE. Shockwave, you now also apply knockdown to that center target, which is a powerful crowd control, as an enemy that is knocked down has their next turn extremely hampered. And then Comet Swarm, you reduce the cooldown by 1. This is a very strong, hard-hitting move, but honestly, probably not the first one I would take from this tier. The first one I would take would either be Mindstorm, which we'll get to in a second, or Master of Fire. This one is going to get a much bigger damage boost to Merlin, as it provides 10% weapon damage to all fire skills. You're going to have Fire Drake, you're going to have Firebolt, so this is very effective, and has very strong upgrades with Engulfed in Flames, 30% weapon damage for burning effects, so all your burning just becomes even stronger. And Merlin has very powerful burns to begin with. Firepower, +1 duration. This is just standardly good, and if you're using the Summer Staff build, this turns into an insane damage boost. Inferno, plus 10% weapon damage against units affected by burning, so now just follow-up attacks from Merlin against enemies he's already hit will be that much harder. And then Wildfire, killing an enemy reduces cooldown again by 1, just even more cooldown reduction on your fire skills from Merlin. Going a bit out of order, Pyromania, plus 50% burning damage, also one of the contenders for the first one to pick, as that is a huge burning damage upgrade. If you're using the Summer Staff, I know I keep referencing this, probably the first one you're going to want to take. Then we have Spell Resistance, minus 25% damage from incoming spells, Flameborn for immunity to burning, Protection, minus 10% more, so now this is 35%, Mental Fort for even more mental debuff resist. I mean, this stacks well with this ability here if you're going to take it. And then Ancient Ward, fully negate the first incoming spell. Like I said, he's just so mobile with Teleport. He's just not going to be taking that many hits, so not a great pick for him, I think. Getting into his last unique ability here, we have Fog, which is just, it covers the entire battlefield. So, sort of infinite range. This lasts one turn, but it's a strong range defensive. Range attacks just deal 50% less weapon damage, so if you're worried about ranged units just laying into you, you can pop this up and greatly hamper them. This is strong. I just prefer to take other things from his kit, as even on very hard, me personally, I don't struggle too much with those ranged units. If you are, and that's completely normal, this is a very strong move and a good like opening turn move to mitigate the incoming damage before you start your counterattack. It is fairly expensive with an AP cost of 6. I'm not sure what it means by range of 2, as it just affects the entire battlefield. And a 4 cooldown is somewhat reasonable. Once you're in this tier, though, with Mindstorm, cooldown numbers become a lot less relevant. With the first upgrade of Elemental Fog, you reduce the cost by 2, bringing it down to 4. I think that's a very fair cost. Fog Barrier, we just reduce it by an additional 25%, so that's a total of 75% damage reduction, which is enormous. You have Fog Walker. This just means that Merlin's own ranged attacks ignore Fog, so he can shoot back freely without any damage mitigation. Yes, this does mean your own allies do have their own damage reduced by this ability. And then Persistent Fog, increase the duration by 1. I think 2 turns is reasonable, but this may hamper some of your own party's counterattack ability, especially if you do like to start making moves on that second turn. Then, of course, we have the standard spell power, extra damage, extra range, spellcraft, amazing. And Mindstorm, the ability to just constantly cycle through all of your spells multiple times per turn. It's part of what makes Arcanist so insane. And Merlin has a lot of cheap spells. We have Mind Fog for 2, Raven Swarm for 2, Illusion for 1, Teleport for 1, and then Fire Drake for 5. And that's his offensive move. I mean, he can just go through so many spells in a single turn because he has so many spells, and the bulk majority of them are 2 or less. This is a lot of the reason why a lot of people see Merlin as so powerful. He doesn't have a lot of strong AoE debuffs or crowd control maneuvers. He has a lot of single target ones, but because they're so cheap and Mindstorm, he can just spam out a lot of them in a single turn and compensate for the lack of AoE. So that's the Merlin skill breakdown. I know this one is longer than usual, but there was a lot to talk about. Merlin has a lot of just completely unique skills, or skills that are unique to an Arcanist. So there's a lot of things he has going on, a lot of things that help benefit him specifically and the kind of playstyle he goes for. I'm sure you gathered, if you haven't played with him already, he is very powerful, he's very strong, he has good damage, he has very good control over enemies and the battlefield, even if it's all single target. He's just a very, very good unit overall. There's a reason why he is widely regarded as probably the best Arcanist. I do think Morgana does give him sort of a bit of a run for that title, but anyone that would just say no, Merlin's the best Arcanist, completely understandable as to why. So that wraps this up. I do have another video covering Morgawse, so between the two of these, hopefully this will provide all the information necessary any player may want when trying to decide between the two characters. If this was helpful, that's all I could really ask for, and thanks for watching.